So, so they say ecological potential, ecological assimilation, ecological capacity. So if in case you get to hear about there's a word they use, they said absolute natality. Absolute natality is just talking about the number of offspring that a mother can actually give birth give birth to. So that means the number of offspring you can use parent. So that means the specific number. They call it absolute natality. Absolute natality. That's the number at which you can what now? The number of organisms that you can give birth to. The number, let me just write the number of organisms, the number of offspring, the living organism, number of offspring, a living organism can produce under a normal condition. Are we good? Under a normal condition. Okay, so I'd like you to write that first. I believe you true. So now let's get to the other questions. Let's look at it. Okay, good. So you pick your answer. Now look at the other one. They said the ability of a population to increase under ID environmental condition is called. So you see, it's also called biotic potential. It can be described as the maximum reproductive rate. You know, when they say maximum reproductive rate, it means that what ability to what give birth, right, to other what the offspring. So of a population under what ID what condition. So look at what this is saying. It's saying the ability of a population to increase reproductive rate under ID environmental what the condition. So your answer here will be biotic what potential. Then 17, in an ecosystem, the energy flow is always what? It has to be what now? Directional. Unidirectional. They got that from what now? Food chain. This, the flow of energy is what? Directional. This shows the flow of energy, but it is going in the one-way what? One-way direction. It's not going two ways. It has to be one way. From the producer down to the what? To the last what? Last member. Okay, so let's move on. Look at number 18. Now, they said a person who has had a renal transplant should regulate the intake of. Now, the word renal transplant means the person has done a kidney what now? A surgery on the kidney, maybe a kidney transplant. Obviously, that's a kidney transplant. And now, when you're done doing a kidney transplant, there's something you mustn't take. Number one, you mustn't take food that consists of what now? Salt, at least for the first 2 to 3 months. And that means you must avoid food that consists of amino what now? Acid. Or what? Proteinous what now? Food. So now let's look at the options. Since you're avoiding food that consists of what now? Salt, amino acid, or proteinous what now? Food. Yeah, let's look at the option. Option A is say carbohydrate. Obviously, you can still take carbohydrate. You can even still take fat, vitamins. Option B is what? Protein. So a person who had a renal transplant should regulate the intake of their what now? Their protein. You have to regulate that. Or else, now question 19. They say, in case of muscle fatigue, which of the vitamins should be taken in case of muscle what now? Fatigue. So let's go from there. How many type of vitamins do we have? We have two types of vitamins. We have fat soluble and what? Water what? Soluble. Fat soluble and what? Water what? Soluble. Fat and what? Water. So under fat soluble and water soluble, look at it. Under fat soluble, we have A, D, E, and what? And K. And then we have B and what? And C. Under A, we call it what? Retinol. D, we call it calciferol. E, we call it tocopherol. And K, we call it phyllo what? Phylloquinone. Okay? So that means this one deals with what? Eyesight, sharp brightness. Calciferol deals with what? Bones. This tocopherol deals with what? Your immune what? System. Why phylloquinone deal with your blood what? Blood clotting. Are we good? So now if that is the case, this B here we have B1, B2 to what? The B12, but there are some down there. We have thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, pyridoxine. Let me help you out. B1 is called thiamine. B2 is called riboflavin. B3 is called niacin. B5 is called pantothenic acid. B6 is called pyridoxine. B7 is called what? Biotin. B8 is called folic acid. B12 is called cobalamin. The full name is called cyanocobalamin. Cobalamin. Okay, so it's thiamine. They say it causes beriberi. They said niacin causes pellagra, and then your folic acid can lead to stillbirth if you're not careful. And they say vitamin H is also known as biotin. That's B7. Okay, so you got to take note of that. So now let's see what the question is saying. The question says, in case of muscle fatigue, which of the vitamins should be taken? So if it's going to be muscle fatigue, the vitamin you can take that deals with your bone metabolism is what? Vitamin what? D. Calcium what now? Ferrol. So now, what is the deficiency of somebody who hasn't taken a vitamin what now? D. They talk about osteoporosis, osteomalacia. They talk about rickets. So what does those things mean? Osteoporosis means holes inside the what? The bone. When somebody have hole inside the bone, and they'll diagnose the person of the osteoporosis. And that means either deficiency of vitamin D or a deficiency of what? Of calcium. Majorly, that's deficiency of vitamin D. Then osteomalacia means soft bones. Okay, that means the bones are very what? Soft. Okay. Now that ricket is like soft bones in what? In children. Okay. All right. Now we brace up and look at the next one. So vitamin D is your answer. Now look at the second one. They say which vitamin is large Now they're not talking about the vitamin that will largely harm the what? The bones. Which vitamin in large amount harms the what now? The bone. That means I say in large amount it will harm the what? The bone. We have vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, and vitamin what? D. That means A, B, C, and what now? D. Now somebody will say, which B are they talking about? Now, for a vitamin to affect the what the bones when in large amount, it can't come from the B family. Why? Because the B family is a water soluble vitamin, and they are just needed in the minute action. Not only let's say minute, but it can be flushed out through the waters. Are we together now? So in that case, your answer can't come from your B, neither can it come from your what? C. So the answer is going to be between A and what now? D. And the best answer there is what? Is A. When you take excessive retinol, you're going to be affecting your what? Your bones. Excessive retinol, which is vitamin A, will affect your what? Your bones. Even though you're trying to ensure that, oh, you're trying to have a clear eyesight, it must not be what? Excessive. At least we say too much of everything is what? Is bad. So too much of vitamin A will lead to your what? The harmful of what? Of your bones. Now, I need to make you understand something. When they ask you that, what is the main source of vitamin A? Now, the main source of vitamin A is carrot and palm oil. Carrot, palm oil. What is what's the main source? Sorry. Sorry. What's the main source of vitamin what now? E. The main source of vitamin E will also be what now? Leafy greens. Leafy greens are another main source of vitamin what? Vitamin E. Okay, leafy green is another main source of what? Vitamin what? Vitamin E. Are we good? So why vitamin what now? Your K, which is for blood what? Blood sugar. Sorry, blood clotting. And I told you that inability of the blood to clot will be called hemo what? Hemophilia. So those ones can also be seen, like example of those leafy green, spinach, lettuce, cabbage, your cucumber is a good fruit for that. Okay? Yeah, so that's for that. So for that answer, it's going to be what? Vitamin what? A. I love this question. It said a child has presented with growth retardation, inability to walk, and bruises all over the body. Which of the following nutrients should be recommended? They said as a supplement to the what? The diet. You got to be careful here. Okay, because the child is having inability to walk, and then it has bruises all over the body. And most people will say, oh, that means they should look for protein so that no. They said which of the following nutrients should be recommended as a supplement to the what? The diet. Since they've said as a supplement to the diet, it is your duty to calm down to know what the question is what is saying. So what do you tell them? Option A, milk. Option A is milk. Milk consists of protein. Is that the answer? No. Option B is what? Egg yolk. Egg yolk, please, when they ask you that in egg, where is the protein? It is vague for you to shout that the protein is found inside the yolk. The protein is not found inside the yolk. The protein is found in the what now? In the egg white. And that's what we call the albumin. Okay? The albumin is where you find your protein. The shell is where you find what now? Calcium. You don't find protein in the what? Egg yolk. What you find in the egg yolk is your cholesterol, that's your lipids. You find lipids there. And then you also find a little element of carbohydrate. There is no protein in the egg what? In the egg yolk. Another they say the sweetest part of the egg is what? In the egg yolk. But the albumin is where we find the what? The protein. Are we together? Good. All right, let's move on. So option C says citrus fruit. Now, citrus fruit is where you cook to be what? The supplement. That's a good supplement. Citrus fruit is a very good word now, supplement. And that's your best word answer. Now, they say the hair on the skin get red. when temperature falls. Now that means when the temperature falls, that means you're already in the cold weather season. And when you're in the cold season and you take a little bit of shower, what happens to your hair follicle? It stands. That means the hair follicle will erect. So let's go to option A. The thick fur coat act as an insulator. That's correct. Then it is a behavioral change. It's not a behavioral change. It is just a subcutaneous part. In the subcutaneous part, we have a fluid called sebum, popularly called sebum. Let me spell it on the board. Popularly called sebum. Sebum helps in the lubrication of the what now? Of the skin. Okay. Then cold makes the air what now? Stiff. Now, cold makes the air what now? Stiff. Stiff in aspect of, is it making it flawless or is it making it what now? Stand. So stiff means it goes down. So, but what the cold will make it do is your air follicle will stand what now? Erect. So the best answer to pick there is A. Now, the general molecular formula of carbohydrate, please, general molecular formula of carbohydrate is going to be what? CH2O. I think there's a mistake in those options, bracket N. So for exo sugar, if you put 6 here, that means exo sugar, you put 6 here. So that will be C6, H12, O6. And this is a good example of monosaccharide. Okay? A good example of your monosaccharide. Or exo sugar, exo sugar, example, glucose, galactose, and fructose are good example of that word, the exo sugars. Okay, and they are your 6 carbon sugars. If you put 5 there, and that will be your your ribose sugar. And your ribose sugar are found both your RNA and your DNA. Remember, when they say deoxyribonucleic acid, what does that mean? It means it does not have an element of what now? Oxygen. Okay? So 26 says the part of the skeleton functioning in the upper arm is what? If you go back to what I taught you that time, if you go back to what I taught you that time, I told you about appendicular skeleton. I talked to you about what? I told you about appendicular skeleton. And under the appendicular skeleton, I taught you about the limbs. Okay? And I said we have the upper limb and the lower limb. In your shoulder, you have 2 bones there. You have the scapula and your collar blade. So the scapula is the bone that joins to the what? The humerus. The collar blade is this side. So this is your collar blade. This is your your scapula here. Now bringing it down here, we call it the arm. All this is arm. So in the upper arm, we have the humerus. So the upper arm, for your upper limb, the upper arm, we call it what now? Humerus. Okay. So when we come to the lower arm here, we have what they call what? We have what? Radia and what? And ulna. Okay. Now in the wrist here, we have what they call what now? We call it what? The carpal. The wrist has a bone called the carpal. Has a bone called the what? The carpal. While the palm has a bone called the the metacarpal. Metacarpal. If this is my metacarpal, so this is metacarpal, and then there's 5 things here. We call them the phalanges. This is the phalanges. The phalanges. So that is for your upper arm. While the lower arm, I told you from your thigh, you call it the what? The femur. The femur. Now, the acetabulum, the acetabulum is found in the kneecap. In the kneecap. The acetabulum is found in the kneecap. While your shank, this is your shank here. The shank is the one that I have the tibia, fibula. The shank has tibia and fibula. Okay. Why the ankle has what they call tarsal, while the foot metatarsal. Tarsal, meta what? Metatarsal. So that's just to remind you of all the. Let's go. Question 24, 25. They said the stage of the first symptoms of malaria. The stages of malaria are three. We have the trophozoite. It's called the word the mesozoite. The mesozoite is that stage you get infected. The first stage. Immediately the mesozoite stage gets there, it will affect the what? The liver, and then you see the first sign of what? Of malaria. So the first sign of malaria is seen in your what? When it gets to the mesozoite what now? Stage. So when they ask you at what stage does an individual get infected with malaria, your answer will be called what? The mesozoite. Okay, so the vector of river blindness. So they put success fly, black fly, house fly, and butterfly. So let's talk about everything here. Success fly is the vector of trypanosomiasis, and that's your sleeping sickness. Your black fly, which is the answer, is the vector of river blindness. House fly is the vector of dysentery and your typhoid. Butterfly isn't a what? A vector. It could carry a disease, though, but it's not really a vector. But now we don't know. Tomorrow something else can happen. They said the breakdown of food into smaller particle is called answer digestion. When you break down food into smaller particle, is called what? Digestion. The other option here, egestion means what? That is Egestion. That means removal of solid waste. And then when you say Ingestion, ingestion, that means you're just taking in food through your what? Your mouth. Okay, so the part of the teeth in children that is absent, I already mentioned that the answer is not molar. Please, molar is not the answer. Molar is the biggest part of the tooth, and molar is present at your infant age. The tooth that is not present at your infant age, answer is called premolar. Premolar is not present. 29, the study of fossil record. I've said that a long time, that's evolution. The study of fossil record, when you study fossil record, we call it paleontology. It's called paleontology. So if I study fossil record, it's called paleontology, okay? Now, but if I study rocks, we call it geology, okay? Then if you study what type of rock, when there's a formation of rock, they say it's through weathering. Now, what type of rock do they keep those information? Answer, sedimentary rocks. Okay, sedimentary rocks. Now, okay, if that's sedimentary rocks, how do they used to check the age of those information? They use carbon dating. Carbon dating 12. So again, the study of fossil record is called paleontology. The study of what now? The study of rocks is called geology. Where did they store all those old ancient information, or even the recent one? Sedimentary rock. How do they check the age? Answer, carbon now? Dating. Okay. Morphology is the study of what? the external features of the what of the body. It's so funny that some people they will ask you for what's the study of the external what the features. People will say physiology. Physiology is the study of the internal function. That means you want to know the function of those internal what now organs. If you're dealing with the function of those internal organs, then we call it physiology. But if I just want to study the what, the internal organs, I don't care about the function. That's what we call anatomy. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Now, the protoplasm is a living structure consisting of three things. The protoplasm consists of three things. It's not just two. It's three. It consists of protoplasm is the living component of the world of the cell. It consists of plasma membrane. Plasma membrane or what? Cell membrane. Okay. It also consists of what? The nucleus. And it also consists of what? Cytoplasm. And plasma what now? Membrane. Plasma membrane, same thing as cell what now? Cell. Now, let's go. So the answer here is this three. But if peradventure you see in the question, they don't like putting this one, they like just putting these two, nucleus and what? Cytoplasm. Go for it. That's the correct word now. Answer two. Okay, so let's go. Next question says the basic unit of life. Me and you know that. When they say the basic unit of life, what will be your answer? Your answer will be what now? Cell. Basic unit of life. Answer will be what now? Cell. Then they said the onion bulb is found in the dash. Most of you still choose tissue. Please, onion bulb is an organ, is not a what? A tissue. After the bulb, we have the whole word now, onions. Okay? All right. Then the next question said, which of these? I said one word, they do what they call division of what? Labor. Let me give you a good example of the social insect Jamb knows. There are other new social insects, but what Jamb knows is they know WAPS, WASP, they know what now ant, ANT, they also know what now termites, and they also know what now bees. Those are the ones that know that those are what now social what now insect. Mosquito is not a social insect. Cockroach is not a social insect. Housefly is not a what? A social insect. Even butterfly, they don't see butterfly as a social what now insect because they don't believe butterfly cluster together or they do division of what now labor. They don't see that. So the major one they see is wasps and termites and what? And bees. So in this place, except the exception to the rule here is this guy called what now? Called butterfly. They say the type of muscle found in the heart, obviously that's your cardiac what? Cardiac muscle. When I talk about the heart, they deal with cardiac. When I talk about your what now, your neck, you hear something like cervical. When I talk about something that has to do with your what now, your pulmonary, you're talking about lungs. When I talk about renal, you're talking about the what? The kidney. When they say all those thoracic, that's where they will put the ribs, your what, your diaphragm, you get something like that. Then now next question said the functional unit of I've said that today. Answer is nephron. Okay. Now parthenogenesis is for what member? Option A, queen, king, drone, and what? Worker. Now, since you have parthenogenesis, what are they talking about? I'll tell you. They're talking about these brothers known as what? The bees. They're talking about your bee. There are three members in the bee: the queen, the worker, and the what? The drones. Take notes. No, listen. I need to understand something. Now, somebody's going to say, so they don't have a king? They don't have a king. Now, the termite, which is their other pair, the termite has a what? A king, a queen, a worker, a soldier, and a what? A wing reproductive. Okay, but in the recent classification, the termite is grouped into three. They call them reproductive, they call them soldiers, and they call them what now? Workers. So explain that reproductive is the king, the queen, and the wing what now? Reproductive. So Tama has a king, but bees does not have a what? A king. So the question is say parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis means egg that develop from unfertilized what now? Ovary. If the egg develop from unfertilized ovary, we call it parthenogenesis. Now question is, how does it not come from a what? A queen. Let me explain. Now you see in the colony of the bee, the queen is the leader of that what? Colony. Now, they do what they call nuptial flight. Nuptial flight, or we call it wedding flight, whereby the queen will go into the air and mate with a drone. And after a successful mating, it takes off the private part of the what? Of the drone. So that means that drone, private part, it ripped off, is going to act as a what now? Sperm to the what? To the queen. Why? Because the queen has a structure called spermatheca. And that spermatheca is to store what now? Sperm cells. So they don't need males to help them fertilize their what? Their egg. Now the question somebody will ask is, what if the sperm and the spermatheca got to finish? Then they go back to any drone again. So that's why in the colony of the what? The bee, the drone only leave what now? Only has one thing to do, to mate with the what? With the queen. And after he mates with the queen, he knows that he is going to what? To die. So a drone only mates once in their what? In their lifetime. So their function in that colony is just to mate with the queen and what? And die. The worker itself, the worker are the one that takes care of the what? Of the colony. Okay. So how does the unfertilized egg come? When the queen fertilizes the egg, the ones that are not fertilized, they turn all of them to what? To drones. So that's where drone comes from. And that process is called parthenogenesis. All right, the set 37. Nuptial flight is found in all insects. I told you. Nuptial flight is found in all social what now? Insect. A good example, the ant wasps. So mosquito is not a social what now? Insect. Arychomatoous tissue. I've mentioned that. Aloe now, alophyte. Then pectin and lignin are found in what? In cell what? Cell walls. Peptidoglycan is like is a what? Is part of the what you find inside the cell of your bacteria. Chitin is in terms of what now? Fungi. Cellulose is in your plant what now? Plant cell. Okay. So last one, functional unit of heredity. We call it what now? Gene. So the functional unit of heredity is called your what? Your gene. So if you're able to do these 40 good questions, and then you ask yourself, okay, where am I in this whole 40 what the question? Have I been able to answer some myself, or I'm still what now playing? If your exam is tomorrow, you still have time to just brush up what a bit of it. Every question they will be asking you in your exam is something you will have had me say in one of our what now of our classes. If you take your time, you should have studied. All what you should be doing now is solving past questions and doing a lot of what revisions. You know, so like I used to tell you, biology is not notes. It's all about what now understanding. It's not that hard. Just calm down, do your thing, and enjoy the word now, the exam. And pray too. You know, never forget that. All right. If I don't have any question, I believe I've been able to touch many, many word now areas that I was not even sure that I was going to what to touch. But if you still have any question, you can just drop them and I will answer them later on. In spite of no questions. Okay, hold on. I still have one. I still have some one last question here. Okay, I still have one question here. Okay, hold on. Okay, yeah. Well, I believe you will be able to get this. They said the evolution of the fringing bears in Galapagos Island is a process by what Darwin, and Darwin used that to explain what they call adaptive reward radiation. Okay, Galapagos Island, the fringes bear, is used to what now? To do adaptive what now? Radiation. All right. So that one is a simple one. It's a simple thing. Then the use of disuse of muscle theory was propounded by what? Lamarck. You know that. And then the crop in chicken is for what? Temporary what now? Storage. Okay. So my people, I wish you the best. Have a wonderful what now? Time. Bye bye.